Hello and good afternoon. Welcome back to our series of webinars. NGI LEDGER is the Human-Centric Venture Builder program funded by the European Commission under Horizon 2020. I am Thomas Ramyanila and I will be one of your 4 co-hosts in today's webinar. If you have any sound issues, please dial the number you see on your screen with the access code below. Today, there will be 4 speakers. Again, Andres Sanchez-Sandaza of Funding Box is back with us. Hi, Andres.
Hi, Thomas. Hi, everyone.
Me, Thomas Shamyarira from Brimorpho. We'll be joined by Elena Japunjic of Dine.org. Hi, Elena.
Hi, Thomas.
And again by Jeremiel from Dine.org.
Hi, everyone.
Nice to have you back. The NGI LEDGER is organized by a consortium of 3 partners, Funding Box, Dine.org, and Brimorpho, whose speakers are with us today. Andres, could you please tell us about Funding Box?
Yes, sure. Well, Funding Box is a community of entrepreneurs, makers, developers. We have in our platform over 23,000 users who usually come to our platform to find funding opportunities, knowledge, and connections. We are involved in over 20 Horizon 2020 projects. Most of them you can find them in our platform where you can directly apply to funding opportunities as this one in other verticals like robotics or artificial intelligence or circular economy. We are around 50 people already, and we have hubs in Spain, Poland, and Denmark.
Thank you, Andres. As for Dine.org.
Hi, everyone. We are a foundation, a think and do tank, and a non-profit software house. Since 15 and more years, we produce free and open source software, and we co-authored this call in order to give a chance to social entrepreneurs and people that like to do fantastic products that have an impact on society, a positive impact on society, and also are sustainable by using free and open source software. Our institution has 3 pillars: environmental sustainability, interdisciplinarity, diversity, and free and open source software. And stop saying that we expect to develop free and open source software.
All right, thank you, Jeremiel. Unfortunately, we had some, we didn't have quite good sound there, but the information is on the screen. Non-for-profit software house based in Amsterdam with the 8 years of experience in DLT, and they will be providing research and technical coordination as well as MVP development and management. As for Brimorpho, we will be providing business mentoring using the lean innovation approach, which the teams in Ledger currently appreciate. It is important to note that the business mentors cannot know everything, but through the lean innovation approach, we challenge your ideas and put you in contact with the right people, making a concrete business out of your MVP development. At over 60,000 contacts, and we covered 24 different verticals. Our lean innovation approach leads to 2 major objectives: defining and validating with you your business model and checking your market feasibility. To move on, Andres, please tell us, what is NGI LEDGER?
All right. Well, NGI LEDGER is part of the NGI initiative. That is the Next Generation Internet, where basically the idea behind is to build a new internet. We see, and the European Commission see, that the internet is not working as it should. We are having this huge proprietary platform who are gathering all the data and using for their own benefits. And this initiative goes in the direction of building a new internet where citizens are at the heart, where solutions are built for citizens, and where privacy and data is really relevant, where basically users get back control of their data. In this particular case, in NGI LEDGER, we are focusing, our purpose is behind empowering people to solve problems using decentralized technologies. such as blockchain, peer-to-peer, or DLT. So basically, we are empowering the decentralized paradigm where, again, there is no incumbent players retaining all the power, but where normal people control their data and is more distributed. Broadly, what we are offering is maybe the sweetest thing that we are offering is the equity-free money. It's up to 200,000 euros. We are going to offer this to 32 teams. We already selected the first open core 16 with whom we are already working to. It's about building products, about building MVPs. As you may know, the second and last call is open right now. You will have the deadline in the 31st of January to apply. So you are still on time. Yeah, if you have a project on the space, this is one great opportunity for you to be able to work on your project. Next. This is a bit more in detail what you may gain from Ledger. From these 200,000, as I said, they are equity free, so you won't have to offer anything of your company if you have one, because you also can even apply as a team of individuals. And we are gonna offer 150,000 for the 16 selected teams who will go through a program to develop MVPs, a product for 9 months. And then for the best 8 in class, they will get in what we call the business ignition stage that lasts 3 months, where you get another 50,000, and where we focus more on working on you and preparing you for the market, so your idea can get traction, maybe get investment, and so on.
Access to technology mentoring includes access to semi-advanced technology researcher in residence. Now, out of the marketing talk, this means that we will follow your team to develop your technology, to help you develop your technology, not to develop your technology, sorry, to actually coach you in choices that you will need to make and to research further. Our goal is to understand if technologies are sustainable enough, if you can rely on them not only in the 9 months, but in the sustainability horizon of your project, and if they are licensed in a proper way so that you can correctly be sustainable and exploit them and do your business development with them. So we have a lot of experience with this sort of stuff. As you can see on our page, we run both research projects for the European Commission and also worldwide distributed operating systems. So we will put a researcher in residence to work with you. We will detail this process later in another slide, and we will make sure that you stay well on track, as well assess your readiness through the steps of the project. We will also organize the bootcamp.
Thank you, Jaramil. As for business mentoring, as it's written here, consolidate business case and access to a pool of investors and early adopters. To go back to the lean innovation approach, what it really means is that we encourage the teams to really go out there and meet with their ecosystems, which basically are the various competitors and potential partners that are in there, and receive customer feedback as well. Again, as I said previously, it's all about defining and validating with you your business model and checking your market feasibility. 2 words to keep are agile and pragmatic, because it really is based on you and on the idea and MVPs that you're trying to develop. Our experience with large corporations, startups, and investors has really allowed us to learn about, and with all our know-how and experience, we will be able to help you address the right questions that you need throughout the first 9 months of the program, as written above. And then particularly with the business ignition stage, this is the time when you will be able to show market traction and show business value. This stage is really dedicating to collecting relevant financing, particularly private financing regarding Blue Morpho, but public finance is also included in this. Towards the end, as written below, there will be PR exposure, as there'll be an event organized for the final 8 teams. and that will be communicated within the time of the project. As for the 12-month Venture Builder program, Andres, could you give us more details?
Okay. Well, as you can see, this is available in the guide for applicants that you all should read deeply if you want to apply. That we will highlight it later, but I want to make big emphasis. Here you see a bit the development of the program. As you see, is a 12-month program, as we mentioned, where there are 5 stages with associated boot camps to them. So first we get the 16 teams that get into the program. They will go to the welcome event. Then they will, in 1 month, attend or 2 months, the inception camp, where they will bring their work plan and they will prepare for the development phase. That then lasts until month 6. Along that, you will deliver first a mock-up in a previous stage, to afterwards deliver the MVP in month 6. That's of course a working prototype where we should see what you have already developed. You can see below that the payments will be done by installments linked to deliverables. So when you deliver a certain document and we approve it, we release a payment. This will last along the full project. Then after the MVP, we'll go to the last event, that is the market proof event, where you will be showcasing your MVP in front of an audience. And at the end of that stage, we will select the 8 teams that will go to the scalability phase, that it will last for 3 months, and that will provide to these 8 teams another 50,000 euros. So broadly, this is the program, I would say. The application process, we are playing with public money, so we are really transparent. The process is designed according to the best practices of the European Commission. So basically, you have to present your proposal through our website. You have a link to apply through the Funding Box platform. There is important, as I said, that you read properly the guide for applicants, because there is some eligibility criteria. So we will check who has passed them, and the best project will get to be evaluated by independent experts. At least 2 external evaluators to the consortium will assess your proposal and give to it points. At the end, we will make a ranking, and the 32 best projects will attend to the jury day. The jury day takes place physically, where all the projects has to pitch their proposition, their proposal, in around 10 minutes. A jury formed by the partners and also some external people from our advisory board will evaluate, and that same day we will announce the 16 players that will get in the program in the second batch.
Thank you. Could you give us some clarity on the academic researcher? As in the last webinar, we received many questions to find out exactly what is the profile of the academic researcher.
Well, every team, as we will see later, is required that has 3 profiles. What we call a business entrepreneur, a business developer, or an entrepreneur. There is someone who has experience developing some kind of businesses. Then we have the software developer, that of course is someone who has the ability to code and to build the MVP. And the academic researcher is someone who will have a background in research. With this, to clarify it, we have put this slide, and the minimum requirement that we need for that team member is that at least has the master degree that gives access to the PhD. So that's the minimum requirement, or that maybe it doesn't even have the master, but has published some article in some scientific magazine or journal of accredited quality. So that's the basic requirement or the minimum requirement to be qualified as an academic researcher for the member of your team that plays that role.
Thank you for that clarification. More information is available in the guide for applicants. Now, the main topic of this webinar is the verticals, and as you can see, there are 6 of them: health, economy, mobility, public services, energy and sustainability, and for all projects that don't fit in these 5, open innovation. And then I will begin to explain us what it is, but before, she'll talk about human-centric and ledger.
So what is very important to understand is that we are looking for human-centric solutions. So whatever vertical you choose, it has to be human-centric. To explain a bit more, we are looking what would that mean. Policy principles started its development during the 90s when the Council of Europe published in the Oviedo Convention, human beings' interests prevail over the sole interest of society or science. Nowadays, we can find it in the words of European Commission, what is it? Social innovation. So, new ideas that meet social needs, create social relationships, and form new collaboration. Digital prosperity will inevitably have to go hand in hand with citizens' well-being. So keep that in mind when applying for the Ledger project. That's why we accept open source projects, because they help the community, they are grounded in the community, and they are being developed for the prosperity of the entire humankind in the future.
Thank you for that. It is really important to understand that even though this MVP development is for you, there's a bigger picture for that. It really is for the greater society within that we live in. Tell us about health.
So, what would that mean in health? The goal proposal should introduce solutions to leverage patient-generated health data in a decentralized way to for either research or commercial purposes. So, the goal is to develop socio-economic models that help healthcare providers promoting health and well-being with preventive digital health solutions. Health insurance data management solutions are included. They should also promote decentralized data governance practices and tools to unlock the potential for stakeholders, so patients, professionals, public servants, researchers, to access data in a secure and direct manner while preserving data integrity. So that would be health. Mobility. Thank you. So what we search in mobility vertical, we are searching for MVPs that should enable design, implementation, and deployment of models to build and pay for services on a decentralized and interoperable mobility ecosystem. For instance, mobility as a service, mobility in traffic with more intelligent data collection, fostering models that reduce reliance on fossil fuels and promote green energy, powered mobility, urban planning, smart cities, automotive, public and private transport, mixed mobility. So the goal is to promote a new decentralized set standard for mobility governments. The creation of general frameworks for mobility data is a digital commons. This general framework should enable different entities that can join and build new sustainable business models. So that's mobility through human-centric lens that we are searching for in Ledger. When we talk about energy and sustainability, what we are searching for is the proposal that should tackle issues such as decentralized renewable energy production, accumulation and exchange, carbon footprint reduction, and ocean pollution, alternative food production, tagging and food chain management systems. So it's also about food, and green energy. You can think about it very widely. the creation and distribution of new and less polluting materials, or the reuse and recycling of existing materials. The goal is to promote sustainable decentralized data and business modeling for digital sovereignty. Next slide. So when we are talking about economy, it can also be done there. We are looking for new and innovative ways of decentralized economic interaction among peers, such as crowdfunding, peer-to-peer lending, and e-participatory budgeting in the economic domain. There is a growing need for qualitative ways of risk mitigation to support social entrepreneurship, so the MVPs should provide different algorithmic and data sovereignty in power dynamics and value circulation. The goal is disintermediation and standardization. In other words, to create qualitative technical enhancements to process financial transactions, operate spending reviews, and apply regulations in a transparent and accountable way. Thank you. So public services, when we talk about public services, it's a bit easier to see where human-centric lies. So these should be solutions to make life easier for citizens, public officers, and cities. So for everyone. These solutions should imply the creation of interoperable public services that put citizens back in control of their data and enable citizens to self-manage themselves. It also provides solutions in higher education, so you should focus on that as well. The goal is to create algorithms that are reusable in different circumstances and adaptable to different needs in different cities. So don't only think locally, but also try to think about solutions that can be used in other communities as well. The next slide, please. Next slide. Thank you. So in open innovation, this vertical will offer a space for internet innovators who will be able to submit proposals in areas not included in the 5 vertical clusters described above, or that can span their influence through more than one vertical. Solutions must address the topic of privacy by design and decentralized data governance. They have to have a cross-cutting approach within Ledger Vertical's framework focused on the human-centric nature of the solution. So we have now come back to human-centric in the center of Ledger projects. So think about innovations that put citizens and humans back in control over their data and their everyday lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Elena, for telling us about the 6 verticals or the 5 verticals and open innovation. Who can apply? Projects, in other words, technology, have to be based on research components that are relevant to the topic of privacy by design and distributed data governance. They must also consist of development, test, and validation of technical and economic viability of a minimum viable product or service. What venture is that it's a 12-month venture builder in which you have 9 months of MVP development, so the technical side, and 3 months of business ignition, which is to test out the economic viability, and more than that, go further to really find your early adopters and financing. The results of these bottom-up projects should be compliant with open licenses, open hardware, open software, and or Creative Commons. And as part of Ledger and your technical coaching, you will be recommended the most suitable open source license that suits your project. If you don't have the answer now, it's fine. A research in resident or technical coach, it will be decided which license suits you best. Teams must be composed of minimum 1 and maximum 2 legal persons, with the team comprising at least 3 profiles: an academic researcher, as you spoke about before, a developer, and a business developer or entrepreneur. In other words, the business profile. That is the one situation. The other situation is minimum of 3 natural persons, with the same profiles of a researcher, developer, and entrepreneur. These teams must be legally established in an EU member state or in any one of the associated countries that you will find in the frequently asked questions or the guide for applicants that we will make available to you. It is also strongly recommended that your teams must be gender. This is something that the minimum is 3 people, but the more people you have, the greater opportunity you can actually have gender balance, because we do see that it's difficult to balance gender when you have 3 people minimum. But with bigger teams, it's a lot more possible. I'd like to inform you that our next webinar is on the 10th of January, and in this webinar, we will invite 2 of the current teams to join us and talk about their experiences, and you'll be able to find out more about what they've learned, what the experience has been like, and more information that they're willing to share and talk to you about, and hopefully make you want to apply and continue. As I said earlier, here are the references to the guide for applicants and an FAQ. This link is on here that you can, there won't be enough time to write it all down, but what will happen is that I will send everyone that has registered to this webinar an email with this link. That way you'll be able to access the guide for applicants and the FAQ. I would also like to draw your attention to the Ledger community that you're welcome to join. The official website is on here, ledgerproject.eu. There is the Ledger community, which is on the link that you see on your screen for general questions and more. The advantage of this is that you'll be able to interact with the entire Ledger community. In other words, all the mentors that are in the program, the coordinators and all organizers, current teams, and other interested parties that are linked to Ledger. For more specific inquiries, which is a change from the first webinar, is the contact address social@ledgerproject.eu that you can use to address all your specific questions. Lastly, we have a Twitter page and also LinkedIn page, both which are Ledger EU. Now, the time that we've all been waiting for, the Q&A session. The first question is, what is the approximate date for? The answer to that is that jury day is planned for now for the end of April. The actual date will be communicated to you shortly. Next question is, research on Hyperledger with respect to data governance and privacy by design, is it an option for the proposal? The answer to that is that we ask for an MVP and not research. What that means is that we are looking for a minimum or service. At the end of it, it's something that must be technically sound, but also must be able to be economically viable. Next question is, must the whole team reside in the EU? The answer to that question is no, but you must be based within the EU. Some team members may be based outside of the EU. Next question. A company based in the EU with a team member resident in the UK. I understand that previous funded projects use the structure. Are there any issues with this? At this point in time, there are no issues with the company based in the UK. It depends on the UK policy and on the EU policy. More information will be made available when that information has been made public and can be communicated. Next question is, when you mention researcher in residence, what do you mean? There is a difference between academic researcher, as we spoke of earlier on in the webinar, and the research in residence, which is someone who will follow you closely. They'll follow your development process and advise you on all the questions related to technology and, to repeat myself, technical questions. There's a difference between that and a researcher in residence. Are projects picked to fill categories first? The answer to that is no. There is an evaluation process that goes through an initial selection and it goes through criteria such as ethics and other criteria. And the best projects are picked according to a range of criteria. The projects aren't necessarily selected so that the categories are filled. Instead, the ones that are deemed to be the best to be in the competition are selected. An example is that in this year's group, no team has been selected for the diversity. Next question is, I understand that Belarus is eligible for Horizon 2020, but not in the associated countries. Is Belarus excluded from LEDGER? I do not have the list of associated countries on me right now to tell you the exact answer. But I do recommend that you consult the list of associated countries, and that will confirm to you which countries, including Belarus, is eligible to apply for LEDGER. Our project is related to education. Should it I believe this is a Spanish word, and I apologize, I do not speak Spanish very well, but if your project is in education, it is likely going to fit into public services if it fulfills a public service. But if for any reason it does not fulfill public services, it can go into open innovation. Which two parties will be participating in the testimonial during next month's session? This could help in preparing some questions in advance. As for now, we do not know which two will be speaking in next month's webinar, as it all depends on their availability and their schedule. We have teams that have expressed, and once we have that finalized, we can communicate that to you. Next question. To what extent is the call for research-driven ledger development, and what should the proportion of research to business be? This call is for products and not for research. This is similar to a question that was previously asked. If the goal is just to do research without developing a product after, then Ledger might not be the program for you, but this is something to discuss within your teams and decide what your objectives are. The academic researcher eligibility criterion, does it refer to a full-time member, or can she or he be in the board of advisors? The academic researcher is one of the integral members of the team. They have to be part of the actual team and not on the board of advisors. And regarding full-time and part-time, most teams have realized that there is a lot of work involved, and a full-time position is recommended for at least the core team members. Next question. Can you explain more about the open source nature and what the options might be? Do you accept for-profit businesses? Yes, we refer to software licensing only, GNU or FSF project approved licenses. But just to go a bit further, do we accept the fact that a business is for profit does not prevent it from using open source technology as open source code, forgive me, as we are the business side of things. A business can be built using open source code. Regarding the profit side of things, this is something that we discuss with you as Blue Morpho and in business coaching, and there is a balance, and do not think that open source code equals no profit for a business. Next question says, so there is no restrictions on the type of DLT we use for our product MVP? The answer to that is Ledger is really a project for decentralized technologies. So we don't give a list of the kind of DLT that we accept. The restriction is really based on the open source license that's chosen, and discussions on how that's done will be had during the program. But the choice of DLT or decentralized technology is up to you. the case, some of the teams, for example, do use blockchain, but others use a completely different kind of DLT, and it really is up to you to team. Do you require that all 3 team members be in every workshop you provide, or is there some flexibility in the attendance? We highly recommend that all 3 members of the team attend the workshops, because the workshops address the major aspects of the program, which is technical coaching and also business coaching, and the administrative part is also discussed during the workshop. It's always best to have the technical member of your team to discuss with technical coaches and the business member of your team to discuss with business coaches, as the conversations are a lot more constructive that way, and everyone more or less shares the, or should I say each group more or less shares the same vocabulary, but the final choice is yours as a team. Next question is any form of relocation required? If by relocation you mean, does your company have to change where it's situated? If your company is not situated in the EU or in an associated country, then it could be envisageable that your company should relocate to the EU. But within the EU and within the associated countries, there's no specific requirement for where your headquarters should be. Next question, how does funding work? Will the funds be sent to the company and later on the administrator can pay the salary of the team members? Can we also pay for outsourced services like hosting, storage, domains, etc.? So we just require that 3 core team members be known with requested characteristics, that meaning that they fulfill the criteria that each profile must fulfill. In terms of spending, you are the decision maker in how you spend the money. You spend the money as it best fits your plan. We do not impose how your budget should be done or conducted. Next question, how important is the business case? In other words, does it increase the chance to be part of the second batch when the business case is very lucrative? The answer to this is a venture builder with 9 months of MVP development and 3 months of business ignition. One thing to understand is that it's not because an established company is in the program that they will necessarily do better than a startup or a company that's younger. The decision on how that there are criteria on what decides which 8 companies move on to the next round. And the short answer to this is, if the business case is lucrative, and this is a relative, at this stage for US listeners, this is a relative term, the chances are higher. But this is something that's developed from the beginning up until the end, and there is support and there is advice that is given to ensure that the best businesses, let me not say the best, the businesses that are considered to have the best chance of being lucrative make it to the next round. This is something that's discussed throughout the program. Next question. Is the researcher required or highly suggested? The researcher here, being the academic researcher, is one of the 3 key members and must be part of the team. Without a researcher, the team cannot be admitted into the program. On to the next question. Research could be only technical related, or it could be, I'll rephrase it. Could research only be, or could it also regard data collection format of data to be collected? This is more about the content rather than the technical issue. The important thing is that you have a product to develop in mind and that it is well defined and sustainable. As for addressing the questions regarding that research, this is something that would be seen during the program. Must the researcher have expertise within the ledger area? There is no prior requirement for the researcher to be a specialist within Ledger. every application is evaluated against a certain number of criteria, and that is what the projects will be evaluated upon, selecting which 16 teams make it into Ledger. Must the project be 100% open source or only some parts? The decision is up to you and your business and where you are. If you want it to be 100% open sourced, you can. If you want it to be partially open source, you can. This is something that's discussed during the program. It just cannot be 0% open source. Could you justify in what cases there is joint ownership? When your solution includes aspects to it that are already IP protected, a situation of joint ownership can be created. Another question. There's still some confusion about the researcher. How does this requirement as a full-time team member fit into product development? The answer is you can organize the time of your team members as you find it best to fit with the development of your product. And to add to that, the decisions are already yours to make. We, as the consortium, do not impose how you should work or how you should organize yourselves. What there is, however, is there are deadlines to be met, and there are certain goals and milestones that should be met. And so long as you meet those milestones, that you do meet those deliverables, that is what unlocks the payments within every stage. However, we do not look to manage how your teams operate and how they work. Regarding members that aren't based in the EU, so the rule, I'm grouping a number of questions that surround a member that's based outside of the EU. The company or the legal person that is applying for Ledger must be based in the EU and must be based in the EU or in an associated country, as according to the list that is within the guide for applicants. You are allowed to have team members that are not based in the EU. And that could go for, that includes people that may be in South America or Egypt. I've mentioned those two places because those were specifically in the questions, but team members can be based around in other places outside of the EU and associated countries. However, the company itself and the legal person itself must be based in the EU, and you must be able to attend the workshops, that the boot camps and workshops that will be during the program. Next question. I am bringing a new team member in my company. She's going to sign a private document about equity that will be registered in the future with a notary. Where do I need to include them in the equity? Is there any timeline? There is a need only to make 3 crucial team members known, which are the developer, the entrepreneur, and a researcher. All other organizational policies are internal and depend on your team. If that isn't so clear, we are only looking at the 3 core team members are part of Ledger. As for how you organize your teams internally, that's something that we judge to be your affair and something that we can't involve. Next question is, can we use an alternative standards-based P2P technology? Yes, you're free to use whatever technology you find the most suitable for your product. It is not up to the consortium to prescribe which technology for you to use, so long as it fits the requirements to be part of the Ledger program. Does researcher mean that a team member must have a PhD title and work inside a university or acknowledged research institute? This goes back to the slide that was on earlier on in the webinar. The researcher must have, if they have a PhD, then they are doing research, which means that they are a researcher. They must have a master's degree that opens them up to the opportunity of getting into a PhD. That's the one criterion. The second one, or should I say, it's one or the other criteria which counts, is that they must have been published in a scientific journal or magazine. Can a team present more than one project? In case selected, we would continue developing only one project. You can start an application for more than one product, but you can submit only one application per team. And if you are selected for other applications, that's something that we'll address that part of the question. Send us this question at the address that you see on your screen, and we will answer you more directly regarding that. Regarding the spending of the funds, do you require record keeping to verify how we spent the funds? The answer to that question is you are required to follow the Ledger program and meet deadlines and milestones. However, there are no internal audits done by the consortium on how you allocate your resources. Again, addressing the question of the EU, can the company based in the UK, in case real? That depends on UK policy if Brexit happens. It's something that we cannot say for now. While the UK is part of the EU, we treat applications from the UK as any other application coming from within the EU or associated countries. When Brexit happens, the new policy will inform us of what to do next. Where will the boot camps be? The boot camps can be anywhere in the EU. Winning teams will be informed in advance of where the boot camps are. Next question. Does research need to be related to privacy by design and decentralized data governance? But what specifically is the main goal and/or role of the research within the development of the MVP? Can you make that explicit? Your product needs to be based on solid research grounds made by the researcher in your team. The goal of the research is to be able to develop a product after, which means that the research is there in order to ensure that the technical aspects are covered. I apologize for not explaining that too clearly, but it is a question for the tech coaches that will be following. But at the end of it, the research must be the basis of the MVP that you're developing, which in the end is a product or service. NGI Ledger is looking for new applications, and this is done, new applications after decentralized technologies, and this is done via a product or service at the end, backed by research/science, whichever you see fit. In the UK, you can access a PhD without a master's degree. Do UK-based undergraduates count? All researchers will be considered as such based on the Marie Curie criteria definition. Marie Curie, famous scientist of France. Will boot camps always be in the same country? The decision of the boot camps is made a few months before the boot camp actually happens. This year it did happen that 2 boot camps were in the same country, but this isn't necessarily a rule. And I have arrived at the end of the Q&A session. Thank you very much for joining us in today's edition of the webinar. Again, the next is on the 10th of January at 3 p.m. And we will have speakers that will talk to you and give testimonies about their experience in Ledger this year.